Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits and welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire, and this week I'm going to show you how to make the most of decorative paper. I am always captivated by the beautiful papers in the art supply stores and at the store Paper Source, which I recently visited. And these papers are always tempting to use in collage, but they will fade. So I've got a solution for you so that we can still embrace the beautiful papers that we can purchase at the back of the art supply store or at decorative paper stores and use them in our fine art with no fear of fading. So if you've got a few minutes, let's go check it out. Welcome to the studio. So I was recently in Washington, D.C. celebrating fall because we don't really get that here in Sacramento. And happy Thanksgiving, by the way. Celebrating fall in Washington, D.C., enjoying walking around Old Town Alexandria, Virginia with my son, my very tall boy. So as we were walking around Old Town Alexandria, I noticed that there was a Paper Source store. And this is a store that I have enjoyed looking at the handmade decorative papers in for years because they have a larger supply of them than my Dick Blick here in Sacramento, and a larger supply than many other stores because they're all about paper. So what I wanted to show you this week is how I use decorative art supply store papers in my fine art collage work. What do I do with them? So I purchase them only in light or natural colors because the color that these decorative papers come with, if you get them in red or blue or green, those colors are those papers are colored with dye, and that is the same material, the same thing that the construction paper that we used as children is colored with. And you know, construction paper kids projects, when they hang on the refrigerator for a little while, they fade like crazy. These decorative art supply papers are colored also with dye. They can't be colored with pigment. They would be way too expensive for the average crafter. So what I do is I love to purchase ones with metallic. So this is like a fern leaf pattern, and you can see some great texture on that paper. I like the metallics, and the Paper Source, I'm going to give you a link below. The Paper Source website has a lot of natural colored paper with metallic decorative effects. And that's what I'm going to use because I'm going to paint the paper with golden fluid acrylics. They are going to have the professional UV light resistance of professional acrylic paints, the same as a professional acrylic painting. So we will not be subject to the dye coloring. So for this reason, I'm buying the paper as light as I can get it. White, off-white, natural, a light color that I can paint. So here's the first one with the leaves. And then I got a second one I couldn't resist with swirls. These metallic swirls. Look at that. I mean, aren't those beautiful? And that metallic is not going to fade. And that metallic is going to resist the fluid acrylic. So the fluid acrylic is going to roll right off of this metallic. These patterns are going to show right through, and we're going to be able to color them any color that we want. And we're going to be able to feel satisfied that if we use this in our collage work, it's not going to fade. So what I am going to suggest you do, because these papers are $6 or $7 a piece, and so what I like to suggest is dividing them into multiple smaller sheets and painting them different colors, because you're not going to need this full sheet, this whole sheet of one color. It'll take you forever to use that. So I am going to divide these into smaller, sort of 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 10 sort of size sheets. One, so that I can manage them a little bit easier in the camera, but two, because like I said, I don't need all one color of this paper. I need a variety. So you could even divide them smaller than 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 10 or that sort of average, whatever they break down to evenly. You could do them smaller and do a couple of different colors and really have a lot of options with this. Now I'm using the gold, and like I said, I'm purchasing the paper on off-white or light. There are sometimes other things that pique my interest, and they'll include iridescent patterns as well, or fibers and textures, or just a really nice quality handmade paper that I think is going to tear beautifully in my collage process. Because all this paper that I am creating in many of my YouTube videos, what I do with the paper is I use it in fine art collage. So I have to be very mindful that my papers are not going to fade because I sell my work. And so I want to make sure that whomever purchases my work is going to enjoy it for a long time in full glorious color. And golden fluid acrylics are going to be your professional artist colors. And they will have the most resistance to the UV light and fading. All right, so I'm working on my nonstick craft mat desktop covering. This is nonstick. If you don't have this surface, you're going to want to work on a sheet of shiny palette paper or a kitchen trash bag or some sort of vinyl plastic tablecloth, because when you get paint soaked into these papers, they will stick to the surface if it's a porous material, because the binder in the acrylic paint is sticky. It's plastic. So you're going to want to make sure you do this on a surface that they're not going to stick to. So when they dry, you can peel them off. So they won't stick to this tabletop. And I have this across my whole desk. All right. So let's start with a really dark color. So all you need for this is a soft paintbrush, some water, and your nonstick surface. So let's start with a really dark color. I've got a magenta is not super dark. Let's start darker. Let's go with anthracnone blue that's not open. Oh my goodness. All right. I don't want to open that because I'm sure there's an open one back inside. So I'm going to use dioxazine purple. I'm just going to put that out on my desk here. I'm going to put water in it, enough to get it moving around. Not tons of water because it'll dilute it down, but enough to get it spread. And you see that metallic pattern is resisting the paint. So you can see that you don't have to do any special consideration or treatment or technique to get that to show through. Let's get a little bit more. This is a very absorbent rice paper, handmade paper. And I think because of that, this is going to go through the back. Yeah, if we use a little bit more water, it'll go right through to the other side. And the beauty of that is that when you tear a paper like this, where the color goes right through the other side, you won't get white edges. You'll get purple edges. And that's kind of wonderful because this is a bit of a thick kind of fibrous paper. So I won't have to worry about white edges when I tear it. So here you can see dioxazine purple. It's a nice dark purple. I often use this color instead of black. And the contrast between that beautiful dark purple and the gold is quite dramatic. So there we go. And it is rolling all off the gold, but I could take a little paper towel and sort of dab it off the surface if I wanted it to be more strong. But I do actually kind of like it with a little bit of the purple tinting on the metallic. But you can see I did not do much to get that to not stay on the metallic. That's the beauty of the metallic pattern on these papers. So now let's do one in magenta. Magenta is another color that looks really nice with the yellow of the gold. A little water. And I've still got a little purple in my brush, but not to worry. It's not too much. But so look at this. Again, the gold metallic of these art papers resists the fluid acrylic. And we're getting nice, rich colored paper. And we're getting a little bit of a few different colors. So again, don't paint the whole sheet in dioxazine purple. It'll take you 6 years to use all of that in collage, but rather divide it down into smaller sheets and give yourself a wide variety of colors. Now, another way that you can add texture to these colored sheets is a bit of splatter. And for sheets that are with gold metallic, I like to splatter a little gold on top because that adds a little bit of gold in the negative spaces. But if I do it when they're wet, it's going to absorb the gold. It's going to soak in because the paper's wet and the paper's highly absorbent. So I'm going to wait for the sheet to dry before I do that. But I like that on this because it'll give me some gold in these bigger negative space areas. On this one, I won't see it. But on this one, I will. So I'm gonna see if I can get those to dry a little bit. And then let's bring out this one, my second sheet. And let's do a turquoise phthalo. That's a nice dark turquoise color. A little bit of water. And the surface of this paper, this is not absorbent like the first one. So it's not going to soak all the way through. But the surface is smooth. So it's easy for me to get more coverage with my paint as it glides across the surface. Okay, so, and then typically we just have to wait for the metallic to sort of resist the fluid acrylic. So that should come up a little bit more obvious the longer we wait. But look at how beautiful it is with the fluid acrylic on top of the gold. You still see that beautiful pattern, but we now don't have to worry about it fading. So let's grab that color and put it down here. You can make a complete sheet. And I'll wipe this up. It's the beauty of this desktop. Okay. And then we'll get another one. And remember when you pick out these papers to choose white or natural, because that means you can paint it any color, from a light color all the way down to a dark color. But boy, do I like the contrast of darker and medium colors with the gold. So let's try some ultramarine blue on this one. So again, the way that the swirls come through the way the metallic comes through, and it depends on the contrast of the color that you use. So it's obviously going to be more intense when you use dark and medium colors, and it'll be a little bit more subtle if you use a lighter color. But all colors should be experimented with in this, because you sure can make some unique papers for collage. So you can see this one is resisting a little bit more. The gold's coming through a little bit more here. And this one is starting to resist, but you can certainly see that beautiful gold pattern through there. So let's get one more here. This one paints a lot faster because the surface is smooth. And this one is highly absorbent and thicker. So let's see. We'll clean that up. And then for this one, let's try the magenta. I like the magenta effect on the gold on the first one. So again, a little bit of water helps it to resist off the metallic a bit better if it has a little bit more water, because it can move easier that way. And this is a paper that is not absorbing the color through itself. So it's not an absorbent rice paper. It's not going to come all the way through to the other side. So we're going to have enough, something like that. This one would come through all the way to the other side, but I need to use a little bit more water. But you can see that it's pretty heavy there. I also could come to the back and bring the color, a little bit more water in with my magenta and get it to soak all the way through. And this will ensure that when I tear it, I get the magenta edges, because I'm going to have it soak through from both sides like that. So now it's really wet and watery, but it's going to be colored all the way through. So this one's starting to move a little bit. And then I'm using all translucent colors on these. This is an opaque color. You can see that you don't see the tick marks here. And so it's an opaque to semi-opaque color. You don't want to use an opaque color with this, because the white that is in the opaque colors will sit on top of the gold. You want to use colors that are translucent, where you can see the tick marks through them very easily, and you see this open square down here indicating that it is a translucent color. The same with the magenta. You can see the black tick marks, so you can see the black through the paint, and you can see the open square that it is a translucent color. So you want to use translucent colors here, not opaque, because the white that's in the opaque will sit on top of the metallic and it won't resist as nicely. So here you can see, you give it a few minutes, and this one is really starting to resist off of the metallic and settle into the negative spaces. So now I have it in blue and I have it in teal. And we're going to give this a little bit of time to resist off, and I will have it in magenta. So the longer you sit and watch it, it tends to roll off the metallic as it dries. You can see that starting already right here. So as it dries, it's going to roll off the metallic. Now, some colors may be more successful than others. You have to sort of practice, but just don't use anything that's opaque or semi-opaque, because that will sit on top of the metallic. So let's see now. Let's take the gold. I'll try it on here because we do have a lot of blue open spaces, and I think the gold would look nice on there. I'm going to try it on this paper, but I know that this is soaking wet and it's going to take a while to dry, and it's going to absorb down into the wet and probably bleed out. It'll still look good, but it's not going to be a crisp dot when the paint is not dry. Here we're pretty dry, and I'm just going to dab the surface of it to make sure that we're dry, or a little bit drier. And I'm going to put on the gold, iridescent bright fine gold splatter effect. Now, when you do splatter, you have to understand that no matter how controlled you try to be, it's going to get all over everything. So get things out of the way that you don't want gold splatter specks on. So I'm going to add water to the gold with my brush, and then I'm going to tap the brush against my finger. I might need a little bit more water in order to get the paint to splatter. And the tapping against your finger keeps it a little bit more controlled, a little bit less likely to go all over. Oh, that's too heavy, but not too bad. I need a little bit more water in there. I'm going for a fine speckled effect. So I don't really like that big blob there. I'm going to take that. No, we're going to give me, that's not too bad. I kind of actually like it expanded in those spots. It's kind of neat. That's not what I expected, but let's see. What if we dab it all over? Then it pushes the dots out. And this is the sort of starry night effect that I'm going for. And we just need more water to make a better splatter. And I actually do like those big dots. I didn't think I was going to, but... So that's kind of a fun effect and a very starry night type of pattern. This would be beautiful in a dark sky. It would be beautiful in a fabric, on a portrait. Really nice. I like that a lot. And we could do it on this one. See what we get there. It doesn't have to be gold. Could be copper or bronze, but or an opaque color. We could splatter with an opaque color and that would stay up on top of it. But I'm trying to keep in the metallic theme here by adding gold splatter into the gold swirls. So here I've added the gold splatter in with the gold swirls. It's just another layer of effect. So we've got the two here. Very Van Gogh. All right, and I do have splatter everywhere on my desk. Even though I controlled it, it's all over everywhere. So luckily, I don't worry about that. But you do need to keep in mind, even tapping against your finger, it's going to go all over the place. Okay, so these are still damp. I don't know what to expect of these because I think the splatter is going to soak in. But that's a wet into wet, whereas this was more of a wet into dry effect. You can see the dots are still crisp, so they're sitting up on top of the dry paper. When you splatter into wet, especially an absorbent paper like this, they may bleed out and look less crisp. If I wait for this to dry completely, they'll look different than when I put them on when it's wet. So there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Just getting a little bit of gold into those empty spaces, and it's not soaking in as much as I thought it was going to. So this just adds a bit more dimension to the paper. So now I've got a little bit of metallic in those larger negative space openings. So I've really created a fun kind of metallic and dark. And look at how beautifully, once this set to dry for a little bit, it resists off of the metallic printing in the decorative paper. So here again, I'm adding some splatter into those openings, those dark areas of purple. And less water is going to make finer splatter dots, and more water will make larger splatter dots. So here we can add a little bit more paint and a little bit more water. And there you have it. So we have a beautiful selection now and many, many more sheets I can make out of this paper. I've got lots of it left to create in many different colors, but I've got some beautiful metallic with the magenta, the dioxazine purple in the fern pattern. Then I've got this one is turquoise phthalo and the ultramarine blue. And this one didn't resist off as much as I thought it was going to. I probably didn't have enough water. So let's dab the surface of this. Yeah, probably didn't have enough water, but it still looks pretty cool. But I didn't splatter on that one. So here's the beautiful effects that you can get with decorative papers. When you paint them yourself, they're not going to fade, and we get this beautiful gold on gold texture pattern, and we are sure that when we paint it with professional acrylic colors, it's not going to fade, and we can use it in fine art collage. Well, I hope you found that helpful. I hope that you will remember to divide your paper into smaller sections so that you don't end up with 6 yards of exactly the same color that will take you forever to use. I look forward to seeing you right back here next week.